President Trump and President Zelensky have a face-to-face in Washington, what the meeting means for the future of Ukraine and pursuing peace with Putin. Plus, could a big change be on the way for how America votes? I'll tell you all about the executive order the Trump administration is putting in the pipeline. And a fatal tractor-trailer accident in Florida. The first Trump administration ordered the driver's deportation. Biden's gave him a work permit. Those stories and more today, Tuesday, August 19th. I'm Caitlin Becker, and this is the New York Postcast. We're in the thick of the dog days of summer, but there's a big reason why you might not want to set the AC to that ideal temp of 68 degrees, or at least it's my ideal. It's your electric bill. Rising electricity costs might have you sweating more than a heat wave. Consumers coast to coast are noticing a jolting price hike this summer. Some people in places like New York and New Jersey are seeing their bills jump $100+ a month. A report from Carnegie Mellon University in North Carolina State predicts that electric bills may cost 8% more nationwide by 2030. And if you're looking for someone or something to blame for all this, might I direct your attention to chatbots, who incidentally don't feel temperature. According to Bloomberg, data centers run by companies like Amazon, Google, Meta, and Microsoft suck up 42% of power capacity. And no, power isn't an unlimited resource. So who does this hurt the most? Well, energy experts say probably the people who can afford it the least, retirees and middle to low income families who can't easily stomach the price hikes. The big takeaway here, we just don't have the energy. Now to a presidential push to change how millions of Americans make their voices heard. I'm talking, of course, about voting. President Trump recently fired off a very lengthy Truth Social post saying that he wants to restore honesty to the 2026 midterm elections. His plan to do that? Well, he wants to jettison mail-in voting and electronic tabulation machines. Trump brands those machines as, quote, highly inaccurate, very expensive, and seriously controversial. But the president didn't offer any sort of evidence to support those assertions. The majority of municipalities actually already use paper ballots, which are then fed into a machine for counting, and they have several stops along the way to ensure accuracy. And there are questions about whether or not he can legally follow through on this pledge. The administration believes they can get it done by executive order, but elections are a patchwork. States can each decide how they count votes, with the federal government acting more like an advisor than an administrator. And judges have already nixed administration plans to invalidate mail-in ballots that are postmarked by Election Day, but delivered after the polls close. And if you're asking why the president is doing this now, the answer might be a seed planted by Vladimir Putin. Here's what the president told Sean Hannity.
Vladimir Putin said something, one of the most interesting things. He said, your election was rigged because you have mail-in voting. He said mail-in voting every election. He said no country has mail-in voting. It's impossible to have mail-in voting and have honest elections. And he said that to me. It was very interesting because we talked about 2020. He said, you won that election by so much. And he said, and you lost it because of mail-in voting. It was a rigged election.
Fact-checking Putin there, more than 24 countries, including the United Kingdom and Canada, use mail-in ballots. And Russia, not exactly the poster child for free and fair elections. At any rate, the president suggested he wants this change in place for the 2026 midterm elections. Now to Florida, where angry residents are questioning the circumstances around a fatal tractor-trailer accident. Harjinder Singh was at the wheel last Thursday when he allegedly made a rogue U-turn, crossing the median of a highway before steering his truck into high-speed traffic. The result was ugly and tragic. You know those gaps in the middle of a multi-lane highway where you'll occasionally see police or highway construction vehicles pulling in and then they turn around to go the other direction? Well, the video shows a driver making an illegal hairpin turn into one of these when a minivan slams into the back of this enormous semi. The driver and the passenger barely seem to register the moment of impact since the vehicle they're in is so big. But the small, in comparison, minivan was obliterated, wedged underneath. The three people in the vehicle, a 37-year-old woman, a 30-year-old man, and a 54-year-old man all died. Singh, the driver of the tractor-trailer, is now in custody after being arrested by U.S. Marshals and faces 3 counts of vehicular homicide. And adding another layer to the story, there are questions about whether Singh should have even been in the country. Authorities say the Indian national entered the United States illegally in 2018 under the Trump administration. He was fast-tracked for deportation, but he managed to secure release on a $5,000 immigration bond in January of 2019. While waiting for immigration issues to clear up, he got his work permit in 2021, now under the Biden administration after previously being denied. And then he obtained a truck driver's license in California. Now to our big story, the possibility for peace. Donald Trump welcomed Volodymyr Zelensky and a gaggle of European heads of state to the White House yesterday for a meeting that could alter the trajectory of Ukraine's war of survival with Russia. During the events of the day, President Trump was heard on a hot mic with French President Emmanuel Macron discussing the possibility of a deal with Vladimir Putin. Trump said this, quote, "I think he wants to make a deal for me. You understand that? As crazy as it sounds." Now, the last time Zelensky was at the White House, things didn't go well. The two leaders didn't exactly come to blows or anything, but the meeting essentially combusted on live television. This time around, a total 180, and the Ukrainian president called it the best meeting so far. Now, when the meeting wrapped up, President Trump went right to Truth Social to say that the two came to an agreement on the workings of a plan. First, a meeting between Putin and Zelensky, time and place TBD, and then a trilateral meeting involving all three heads of state. One thing likely won't be on the table at either of those talks: a ceasefire.
It might be good to have, but I can also understand strategically why, one country or the other wouldn't want it. You have a ceasefire and they rebuild and rebuild and rebuild. Maybe they don't want that. But if you look at the 6 deals that we made peace and long-term, long-running wars, I didn't do any ceasefires. I like the concept. I like the concept of a ceasefire for one reason, because you'd stop killing people immediately, as opposed to in 2 weeks or 1 week or whatever it takes. But we can work a deal where we're working on a peace deal while they're fighting.
Now, yesterday's meeting appears, at least, to be a positive signal. However, without a ceasefire on the table, the circumstances on the ground in Ukraine are anything but positive. The talks between Trump and Zelensky happened mere hours after Moscow gave the green light for new attacks inside of Ukraine that killed at least 14 people, including a 15-year-old boy. Now, we wanted to get the immediate reaction from this face-to-face, so we spoke with New York Post White House reporter Diana Norozi Monday evening. Diana, the last time these two leaders met in the Oval Office, it wasn't pretty. Did things seem more chummy this time around, at least publicly? I mean, I know it wasn't as painfully awkward as it was the last time we saw them.
Yeah, I mean, the energy today was just so positive right from the beginning. Trump was putting his arm around Zelensky right when they met. And then later on, they were joking, they were laughing, and officials from both sides were shaking hands and smiling. So it really seemed like they were trying to start off on a good foot this time. They're not trying to remember anything of the past. And they're really positive and really hopeful about trying to reach some sort of agreement and understanding today. That's the sense that I got.
I mean, I have to imagine that this is a good sign to other world leaders in general. I mean, the U.S. is playing kind of middleman here, and for the middleman to have an adversarial relationship with either side, that's not good. So was the vibe around there better than it was last time?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, first, last time and this time, hundreds of reporters were there. Everyone was just super anticipating what's going to happen. But I think this time, just given the context of what's been happening with Trump talking to Putin on Friday and over, 5, 6 European leaders showing up to the White House as well today, along with Zelensky, leaders from Germany, Italy, the UK, NATO, Finland, the EU. It really seemed like a historic meeting today. So I think everyone was really hopeful and just trying to show their best face today.
We keep calling it the squad on the podcast here, all of those world leaders who came with Zelensky. Since you've already brought that up, I want to ask you about what additional role, if any, they're playing in all of this. Are they drawing any lines in the sand, or are they just there as more of a support network?
Well, they're not drawing any lines. I mean, they came here today as a representation of support for Ukraine, but also they're key in discussing security guarantees. And that's a large topic that is being discussed today. First, it's just to see where Zelensky stands and what he's willing to talk about in terms of territory. But the second part is security guarantees. The European leaders indicated that they're willing to provide that. And it's something that Zelensky has been talking about for the entirety of the war. What is Europe? What is the US willing to give Ukraine? What guarantees so Russia doesn't invade again? And today the conversation will be, is it military? Is it weapons? And we'll have to see.
When it comes down to brass tacks, what is wanted and needed here is peace. It's for this war to end. And in order for that to happen, these negotiations between Putin and Zelensky need to happen. And there's going to be compromise. As much as President Putin hates the idea of compromising, to get this done, that's going to have to happen. Are there some non-starters or demands from the Ukrainian side that Zelensky has that must be met in order for them to come to the table?
Well, today he spoke about two specific ones. He first said that he wants a strong Ukrainian military, and secondly, support from other countries, aka those security guarantees. And of course, Zelensky on his side would want, for example, NATO membership, or he's even talked about Ukraine getting nuclear weapons since they gave them up voluntarily back in 1994. But of course, for Putin on the other side, NATO or nuclear weapons is just not a possibility. So today we'll have to see what those European leaders and Trump agree to in terms of security guarantees. Will it be US troops, European troops, or just weapons being sent to Ukraine to supply the Ukrainian military? And there will have to be that second meeting, that third meeting with both Zelensky and Putin there to see where those negotiations can be met, what security guarantees can be provided, and what territory, if at all, will be swapped.
I think that's really the main takeaway here. You really hit the nail on the head. This is laying the groundwork. It's about the second, the third, the fourth meetings. What comes after this? That will be kind of where the rubber meets the road. Deanna, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Did you ever go to take your child to work day when you were a kid? Well, this is just like that, but different and worse. Gen Z is now doing something I highly suspect hiring managers everywhere hate, bringing their parents to interviews. Apparently, some eager new job seekers decided the best way that they can convince employers that they make good decisions is by getting mom and dad to vouch for them. You know, two people with no incentive to exaggerate about how smart or perfect their little Johnny is. Right, guys? Well, according to a new report from a virtual career planning hub, 3/4 of Gen Z job applicants have done this. Those numbers are staggering, but this might be worse. That same survey found 79% of Gen Z workers admit to their parents communicating with their managers, and not about small stuff either. We're talking things like promotions, pay increases, and days off. Also, the word kids doing a lot of heavy lifting here. You and I might always be our mom's baby, but these are adults we are talking about. And in case you think that this doesn't apply to the job search itself, you would be wrong. Gen Zers are using mom and dad as interns to do everything from filling out job applications, writing their resumes, crafting their cover letters, packing their lunches, even commuting with their kids. Now that I'm saying it, nice work if you can get it. And I guess this is what happens when helicopter parent generation has their spawns entering the workforce. They become unpaid talent agents who won't even get that standard 10%. And finally, while we're on the topic of the workforce, once your ma and pa get you a job, new data suggests very few people are leaving them. Remember the Great Resignation? That was the trend during and after the pandemic when everyone was quitting and moving to Maine to make sourdough. Now, not so much. The people who come up with the cutesy terms for these things are calling this moment in time job hugging. The quit rate among American workers is down to 2%, a whole percentage point off from its November 2021 pandemic peak of 3%. I know 1% might not sound like a lot, but it translates to 1.4-ish million fewer people quitting last month than they did during our COVID work from home era. So why is this happening? Well, economists say that it comes down to a simple fear about paychecks and where the next one might come from. With more CEOs planning to slash jobs over the next 12 months, this is according to a recent survey, workers are clinging to their current gigs like Rose in Titanic, desperately holding on to that door, floating in the Atlantic. Poor Jack, forget about him. Now the freeze, I love puns as you can see, does have some consequences. If you stay in a job for a long time, you might not get the pay bump that you've been wanting or a promotion that you could snag by moving elsewhere. Plus, there's the overarching issue that prompted the fear in the first place, the threat of mass layoffs across industries. I'm not job hugging my role at this podcast. I am job bear hugging, job holding on so tight I might smother it all with this love. You can give my job hugs and kisses of your own by liking and subscribing to the New York Postcast, wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. And if you're not one for physical affection, I get it. Think of it like a fist bump. Give one to the New York Post too. Go check us out in print or online, and I'm giving you a big podcast hug right now. See you tomorrow.